Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another edition of Inside Telecom Careers. I'm your host, Carla Macias. I'm also joined with the editorial director and CEO of RCR Wireless News. Inside Telecom Careers is the show that is spotlighting the men, the women, the companies, and the career opportunities associated with technology company funding announcements and public offerings. In case you missed last week's show, we covered the topics CWA, telecom training, and Tyra. When we return, we'll be getting updates on the Verizon union negotiation and the National Wireless Safety Alliance. Nexius, accelerating network and business transformation.
Telecom Careers, the #1 global telecom and wireless job board, telecomcareers.com.
Jeff, before we introduce our guest for today's show, why don't you give us your thoughts on the Verizon union negotiation?
Well, I appreciate that, Carla. The bottom line is CWA and the IBEW, they did not go on strike against Verizon Communications, which is the wireline business of Verizon, not the wireless division. And because some of the key negotiating points in around pay, benefits, and training allowances. I think the big thing for our readers to think about is that the small cell deployments are going to rely heavily on fiber, which is typically work done by the union in major markets. So as the business case in small cells, the carriers are trying to get their arms around the business model, and with the unions in place, the costs are going to rise. So I think that's something really important for our readers to think about. So in summary, the bottom line is mobile operator costs are rising, the need for fiber techs, tower climbers, which we're going to talk a little bit about in a minute, and project managers are in high demand. I think one of the other key elements of the negotiation, and we're going to hear a video clip in just a minute before we jump into our call with Todd and Chuck, is that the union is actually trying to unionize Verizon Wireless. So let's cut over and listen to Chuck Shelton, who is the president of New York City's CWA group.
Let's take a look.
And in it was this ad. It's pretty amazing. I'm sure a lot of you have seen this ad. It says, outstanding compensation, high quality health care benefits, excellent retirement benefits, $8,000 annual tuition assistance, paid military leave, 10,000 adoption assistance, volunteering incentives and matching gifts, career development opportunities. And then it says, we could list more reasons why it's great to work at Verizon's, but we need a bigger ad. But let me tell you, as I said, I've been involved in Verizon bargaining for a long time. And every one of these things, I don't remember once when the company came to us at a bargaining table and said, hey, we'd like to give you outstanding compensation. Would you guys agree? I don't remember them coming to us and saying, we'd like to give you high quality health care benefits. Would you guys agree to that? Besides all of the landline folks that are out here today, and the wireless folks, and the IBEW and CWA folks over here, we're also bargaining contracts for brand new members in Verizon Wireless in retail stores, both in Brooklyn and in Massachusetts. And the shit they have on the table there is even worse than the shit they have on the table with the landline company.
To help us out on today's topics, we have two great guests joining us. Jeff, why don't you introduce our guests and tell us a little bit about them?
Well, I'm happy to do that. First of all, we have Chuck Slagle, who's a consultant to the National Wireless Safety Alliance. He was with Sprint for 30 years, responsible for safety and training. And we have Todd Schleckeway. Todd, it's great to see you. Todd is the executive director over at NATE. And I think the key point of today's show is that over the last 18 to 24 months, Carla, you have seen a rise in tower climber fatalities, and you have seen the industry really coming roaring to the table to say, hey, we need to improve the way we train our tower climbers and the way we attract new climbers to the industry. And NATE and NWSA are a key part of that, addressing the key issues.
Todd, welcome to Inside Telecom Careers. I'm going to start off with asking you, why was the NWSA created?
Well, first of all, thank you, Carla and Jeff, for RCR Wireless devoting this program to these topics. The NWSA was created because it was recognized early on that this industry does not have a national certification and an assessment organization, that essentially is a licensing organization. And the origin behind it was really when stakeholders from throughout the industry gathered in Dallas, Texas in October 2013 at a telecommunications industry safety summit. And very early on in that summit, this discussion and topic rose to the forefront, and that is this industry needs some sort of standardized assessment certification model in order to ensure that the worker in Austin, Texas, or the worker in Kansas City, Missouri, who's trained at the same worker category is capable and competent to perform the scope of work required of them. And all of us know these skills are becoming more and more sophisticated every year as the technologies evolve on the tower. So it's no different. I've been explaining it to people like, if you want to be a nationwide truck driver, you need your CDL, and that'll allow you to drive a truck in the United States. If you go to nursing school after your formal schooling, what do you need to do? You need to go to take your nursing boards. And so that's what the NWSA is really focused on. It's the national assessment certification piece for different levels of workers in the industry after training occurs for that company and for that worker.
And Todd, can you tell us the relationship between NATE and the NWSA?
You bet, Carla. First of all, they're two entirely separate legal entities. The NWSA has its own articles of incorporation, its own bylaws, obviously its own financial checking account, and so all of that is separate. What NATE is providing in the early formative stages of the National Wireless Safety Alliance is some initial administrative support to help get the NWSA off the ground. We all know it's a startup organization, and so NATE is extremely committed to making sure that this organization and the certification programs that get to the marketplace are done in accordance with ANSI accreditation. And so we're just providing a lot of the initial startup administrative support services to ensure that happens. And Chuck Slagle, who's on the call today, has been instrumental in this process, and he is handling a lot of the day-to-day logistics of the National Wireless Safety Alliance.
Well, Todd, you sent over a slide that talked about the NWSA's governance structure, and I'd like our team maybe to pull that slide up, and maybe can you talk about the role of the Board of Governors in the overall NWSA organization?
Yeah, thanks for the question, Jeff. As a matter of fact, this morning, Chuck and the National Wireless Safety Alliance sent out an industry-wide press release to announce the 28-member inaugural Board of Governors roster. And it's a group filled with experience and expertise at virtually all levels of the wireless industry chain. So there are carrier representatives on this Board of Governors. There are tower owner vertical realtors represented, OEMs, large general contractors, small contractors, public safety. There's a government agency, the United States Forest Service is represented. There is several field personnel, tower technicians represented, and everything in between. So we feel like the diversity and makeup of this Board of Governors, Jeff, will really play well, and it's essentially required when you're taking your programs through the ANSI accreditation process. You have to demonstrate that a diverse group of stakeholders and subject matter experts were involved in program development and test development. And the Board of Governors will be playing a vital role in that process to help guide these programs through the accreditation process, and then ultimately to the marketplace.
Well, there's an impressive list of people you announced this morning. I think there were 25 to 30 people listed. You had tier 1 carriers, you had rural carriers, you had, as you said, just a great mix of people. But I thought what was interesting is last month you announced a tower technician board of governors, and I'd like to pull up that slide. Tell us about the 2 young men that are on this group and what's their role in the overall board of governors.
Yeah, Jeff, it was extremely important for everyone involved at the leadership level with the NWSA to have tower technician, field personnel represented around the table on the board of governors. And the 2 gentlemen that were ultimately selected, Ed Owens from Broken Arrow Communications in Sacramento, California, and Kevin Schmidt from Sioux Falls Tower and Communications in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, emerged from an applicant pool of 22 tower technician / foreman applicants. So it was a very competitive process. Chuck ran the finalists through a field questionnaire and a phone interview process. And both the gentlemen that were selected clearly demonstrated throughout the process, Jeff, that they are active on a daily basis in both field site operations and climbing. And so we thought it was very instrumental that those 2 seats are represented on the board of governors and have every bit as much voice as the tier 1 carrier seats and the vertical realtor seats. So we're excited about it and feel that they'll be able to lend a valuable voice to the board of governors moving forward.
Well, this next question is for Todd or Chuck, and I want to focus on the announcement recently you made about partnering with the National Commission of Crane Operators, NCCO. So I think we've got a slide of their logo we can pop up, but why did you choose them, and what role will they be playing in the NWSA partnership?
Yeah, Jeff, the NCCCO, National Commission for the Certification of Crane Operators, has been offering ANSI accredited certifications for 20 years in a variety of construction trade industries, and they've done it very well. And there was, early on in this process, there was a governance working group created to explore different certification models. And the group kept coming back to the NCCCO model is the model that made the most sense for our niche industry that we're all in here. And so it ultimately was decided to bring them to the table. And it turns out CCO offers program development and test administration services. So they have actually been retained by NWSA to help take the NWSA's various certification programs through the test development process and the program development process. So we're pretty excited about it because, you know, it's the model that has been pegged as very successful, and so why not bring them to the table if you want to emulate that model. And Chuck has had some involvement. I'd like Chuck to elaborate on that a little bit as well.
Probably the best thing to say about that would be, and by the way, thank you very much for having me, Jeff and Carla. NCCO is going to be the guidance to certification for us. Right now, up till now, we've had a number of industry specialists giving us their thoughts on what ought to be in it. And NCCO is going to tell us and give us, like Todd said, the path to certification. So we've been working on a number of programs for certification, but we're going to adopt some of theirs earlier or later this year. I'm sorry.
Got it. Well, Chuck, I didn't do your bio full justice. Others say you'd worked with 30 years for Sprint. Can you maybe tell us about some of your specific roles at Sprint and then why you were attracted to this new role?
Sure. I started as a degreed safety professional, and I was with Sprint for 38 years in various levels of the safety organization, culminating basically 17 years as the director of environmental health and safety for Sprint, both wireline and wireless. And at the peak of our organization, we had about 42 people in our EHS organization. So quite a bit of experience on both the wireline and the wireless side. And most recently in the past, I've been associated in my job with the construction folks and the legal folks, putting together the contracts and doing due diligence against our contractors, trying to ensure that we had a safe and healthful work environment at Sprint.
Got it. Well, a lot of people don't realize how complex the wireless infrastructure ecosystem is. You start with the mobile operators, you have the tower owners, and then you have the system integrators, who oftentimes are program management play the program management role of a lot of regional folks who actually do the installation and maintenance of these towers. So, but my question is, what's the role of the mobile operators in the NWSA?
Well, I think the role of the operators is, and I'll go back to what I had at Sprint. We had an extensive program through a company called PICS to try to determine who were the safe operators. There have been so many situations where you get untrained or people that really shouldn't be out on a site. And we did a lot of due diligence, spent a lot of time with the lawyers and with PICS to do this vetting of contractors. I believe this process for the carriers is going to be that we would be able to take the language from the contract and apply it to say, we would want to have certified individuals that have an NWSA certification working on our job sites. Ultimately, if you look at and the reason why we took NCCO and chose them is, if you look a few years ago, cranes were dropping all over. You were having problems in New York City, you were having problems with cranes tipping over and all kinds of cranes, tower cranes, mobile cranes, and they were having about 20 years ago about the same problem we've got in the industry today. And they chose a path of certification. I think the carriers are going to be able to have another tool in their toolbox in addition to pre-qualification that says we want to have that NWSA certified operator on our site, so we know that it's a true professional and not somebody that just came off their truck, you know?
Yeah, well, I think Todd's analogy of truck drivers have national certification, nurses have national certification, and I think the industry it's long overdue for us to have a national certification. I'd like our team to maybe pull up the slide of the NWSA assessment and certification scenarios, and maybe if you could just walk us through the different roles, Chuck.
Well, I'd say later this year, we're going to look at NCCO. They have some classes right now. A signal person is very much a blend with ours. If you're working with a crane or a tower company and we all have the same signals, we're in sync. Rigging, another big thing that's pretty ubiquitous among the groups. So we're hoping to, with NCCO, late fall this year, to roll out our first certifications for those types of things. Later, on a progressive role, in 2016, as you just said, we have just identified our Board of Governors. And the Board of Governors has not seen our tentative plan. Between NCCO, Board of Governors, there's a lot of things that have to be done, but our timetable right now is to put together a certification for a telecommunications Tower Tech 1 and a Tower Tech 2, a telecommunications Tower Tech 2. Those will be the first certifications that we're going to try to roll out sometime in 16. Under development, we have, however, some foreman level certifications. We've got the antenna and line foreman being developed, or in the basic architectural outline stage. We've got a structural modification foreman outline that we'd like to do. and stacking foremen that we would like to do. Now, these came about from a meeting last summer in Florida, where we asked the industry representatives that came to our wireless telecommunications industry meeting what they thought was the priority. And that's where those lists of priorities for certification came from the individual professionals in the industry.
And Chuck, what other specific deliverables can our readers expect to see this year as well as in 2016?
Yeah, I think we actually have another slide that we're going to pop up right now that shows some of the future programs.
Okay.
Yeah, like I said, we hope to get the NCCO certification out this year of signal person and rigger, and then followed in 2016 the telecommunications tower technician 1 and tower technician 2. Those will be the first certifications that we'll have. Then we'll have a card. Once they're certified, they'll carry a card which will certify, and then a subsequent backup to that would be any employer would be able to identify from a QR code on the back. They take their phone and check it, and their certifications would come up on a nationwide database.
Got it.
And Todd, how will the NWSA work with the PCIA and the Tyra program?
Great question, Carla, and it's a good point time here to clarify, because there is a lot of questions in the industry right now about all of these great organizations and programs, the synergies that may exist between the organizations. What I will tell you is, first of all of these organizations and entities are focused on higher level skill level for the industry workforce and a safer and more highly quality level of build out. And so there are a lot of synergies that exist. There's several members of the NWSA Board of Governors who are also involved on the TIRAP board. There are several committee members who will ultimately be on an NWSA committee who's going to be on a TIRAP committee. So I like the synergies that exist, and that's going to help the collaboration moving forward. What I would say the important distinction to make between the organizations is NWSA is exclusively focused on national assessment and certification. NWSA is not a training organization, nor is it developing training programs. The NWSA will focus on the assessments and offering certification after the training is done. And so TIRAP is going to be a much needed training pathway for the industry to choose when the TIRAP program really gets out into the marketplace. And the leadership on TIRAP has done a great job pooling together what they believe is a solid training pathway for companies in the industry to choose. And so from the NWSA's perspective, it's been drilled in our mind through our work with NCCO that you cannot be both the training provider and the certifier. If you want a nationwide ANSI accredited organization and offer ANSI accredited certification programs, there has to be a firewall between the training that goes on and the third party assessment and certification services. And so the NWSA is exclusively focused on the assessment and certification piece. And we support multiple training pathways that are available in the industry. You have private training companies, you have a lot of companies that do their own internal training, and then you have more and more community colleges offering training in the industry. And then the TIRAP, I really believe, is going to be an outstanding training pathway for the industry to choose from that will ultimately help accomplish all of our goals that we all have. And that's, again, a safer and more qualified workforce where build outs are done right the first time. You don't have to send Tiger teams back to redo a network installation project that was done improperly. So I think all of these synergies coming together at once bodes well for the future of the industry.
Well, Todd, thank you for that clarification. Just to drive the point home, NATE is the assessment certification group. There's a firewall between NWSA's role the certification assessment and the actual training.
Not Nate.
I'm sorry.
The NWSA is just the, and I joke with people at a recent conference, this industry has a lot of acronyms, and now we're giving the industry another one with NWSA. So it's just something that we all need to know. But yeah, NWSA is exclusively kind of the national umbrella licensing organization, and we're not and cannot be involved with training.
Got it. What are your thoughts about apprenticeships in the industry?
Well, I can let Chuck elaborate on this as well, but I think apprenticeships are good because in our industry is so unique, Jeff. In a lot of industries, you go through an application, an interview process, and you start day one, and you're starting in your scope of work. In our industry, you not only need to be trained in the fundamental courses of fall protection and RF safety and first aid, CPR, AED, rescue techniques. You also need to you should be paired with a veteran foreman or technician, really the first year or two you're on the job. And because there is so much to learn, the work is becoming more and more sophisticated. And so I think the apprenticeship model certainly is valuable because what it does is it pairs the entry-level workers and the inexperienced workers with a mentor, so to speak, who can help cultivate their skill level while they're on the job.
Got it. Well, Chuck, any comments on the apprenticeship? If you don't have any other comments, we can kind of maybe talk about how folks can get involved with NWSA. What do they do?
Well, I think the best way would be to, first of all, visit our website. It explains a lot of the things that Todd has just explained, and this is where we're going to issue the press releases about every 2 weeks, and you can keep up with the current activity and where we're at with the whole certification process. And that is NWS-A.org. And that would be the best way for anyone to keep in touch with that. There's also a link on there if they have any questions to contact us, and it's the same address, NWSA at NWSA-A.org.
Thank you, Chuck.
Well, thank you so much for our guests, Todd Schleckeway and Chuck Slagle, for joining us on today's episode of Inside Telecom Careers. For more information or to check more RCR TV, head on over to our website, rcrwireless.com. To check out more of our episodes, tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. Central Time. Thank you again, and we'll see you next week.
Inside Telecom Careers is a production of RCR TV News. To reach Jeff Mucci or to suggest a show topic for Inside Telecom Careers, you can reach him at jmucci@rcrwireless.com. For all telecom-related news and information, please visit rcrwireless.com. To connect with the industry's top talent, please visit telecomcareers.net.